Let's look at a few more book navigation examples here. So we have the same book as in the previous video, more or less. The only thing I've done here really is that I've added one more page. So we still have those three first pages, and then we have a fourth page. Now this page is a little bit more interesting because if you open it up, you can see that it contains a button up here and another button down here. It's text, and then it has a book here, and that book in its turn has 4 different pages. Okay, so essentially looking at the hierarchy, there is a book up here, and then on page 4 there is another book that I call sub-book here, just to try to keep things straight. So what I want to do on this page is that here I want to be able to navigate among these 4 pages that we have in this sub-book using a couple of buttons over here. So this button will show page A and so on. So let's start by making this button go to page A, and you select go to local block here, and then you can click this symbol here. Then you can pick page A, which is where you want it to go. And then you have 2 options down here, and that may be a good thing to point out. You can use a relative path. If we go with a relative path, that is nice and clean, and it says subbook/A. So subbook would be here, and A would be here. So it would go to that page, which is what we want. So what's the point of this relative and absolute? It's essentially the same as when you're navigating in a file system on a Mac or a PC, where you can sometimes type in a file path, and that file path can either be absolute, starting from the root level of your disk, which may be like C:/ on a PC, or just / on a Mac. And you then specify the full path all the way down to the target file. That's sometimes useful because it will lead you to the same destination no matter where you start, because you have a complete path starting from the very top level all the way down to where you want to go. So it's in a sense it's more explicit, but it's also more dependent on the exact structure around you. So in this particular case, where we have a button here that is only going to navigate within this subbook, which is on the same page as the button itself, it makes more sense to go with a relative path. And you see, you can do either way. So if I would go to A and I would pick an absolute path, you see it starts with a / out here, which indicates that this is an absolute path, just like for a file system path. So this would also go to book page 4 subbook A, which is book page 4 subbook and A, which is in here. So it would essentially do the same thing, but with a longer and a more complicated path. You can also just go and edit this directly, but often going this way is clearer because you can see where you're going, and here you just say I want the relative path. Okay, so that button now will go to page A, and let's duplicate this button and make the other one. So we make one that will go to page B. And we call that B as well, and duplicate a few more, just doing the same thing. So that would be C, and go to page C, and you see editing down here is useful if you have something that's almost correct instead of going through here, which would do the same thing, but this is just quicker, and I know there is a page named C, so that's fine. One last one here, so that will go to D and D out here. Okay, so now we should be able to try that out. So if we reload this, we go back to the first page. You see I've removed the next and previous buttons that used to be down in the corners here, because I now have the swipe navigation that I can use. Now the cursor isn't showing because there aren't any buttons or anything on this page, but I swipe from right to left, and you can see that's how I move to the next page. Now the cursor shows up because there are buttons here, so we would need the cursor on a regular computer to see where those buttons are. And now I should be able to switch and navigate among these these pages that I have here.